Hello everyone, welcome to my weekly recap of Trinidad Bhojpuri Words and a Phrase. Another week replete with engaging words and conversation. Many of these words so familiar to us, be it through conversation, through books, through songs, and in addition to that familiarity, there's also a sense of pride and there's a sense of comfort because these words take us back to a very special time in our lives, mostly our childhood. And your contributions really do add so much magic and so much life to this feature. So I thank you very much for reaching out to us on social media. So let's get started. Hello, I'm Karen Das.
And I am Dr. Visham Bhimull of Caribbean News Time.
So we had another fascinating week of words, and as expected, a whole lot of fun and lots of memories ensued. So let's get started. On Monday, well, everybody knew this one, which was Datwan. We had the application, we had what you would actually use for Datwan. Folks shared their memories of using this when they were growing up. Some folks said that they still use this, and some refer to this as Datun. So, Dr. Bhimull, you're going to have to break this down.
Yeah, I think Dr. Peggy Mohan had made a comment saying Datun, which is what they say in Delhi. And I think she was describing that usually you go for morning walks in the park. So in the park on the side, they will have stacks of them you could take one, right? There were different twigs you used to use. So, well, some people use the hibiscus, but there was this soap plant, or that is the twig that had that they used to use as well, right? Initially, yeah. I remember my grandparents used to use it. So it's essentially a twig used as a toothbrush. Normally, what they would do is they would bite and strip into the end of the piece of twig, which will form like a brush, and they would use that to scrape their teeth. So it was part of dental hygiene. As a medical doctor, I don't know, my dental colleagues could probably comment on it. Something probably we could probably do research on to see if it actually would confer any dental hygiene. But I just want to make note that is that one, which comes from Dant. Dant would be the word for teeth in both Hindi as well as Trinidad Bhojpuri. So Dant, that one. So we are derivative. So used to clean the teeth. And Dant is the exact cognate to dent, or dental, or dentist in English.
Okay, and I read that some folks said that they would sort of chew on the ends and they'd use that to scrub their tongue.
Yeah, you use it to clean the teeth as well as scrub the tongue. Because imagine a twig like that would be quite easy to scrape your tongue as opposed to a toothbrush now. And because I know normally toothbrush will suffice. People actually use the big ribbons used to tie boxes, the plastic ones, to scrub it tongue.
Okay, so yeah, okay, I had no idea people use that. Well, I guess you have to improvise, right? And I suppose that's what they had to do in order to get to practice good oral hygiene. You had to improvise, and you had that.
Well, you see, the idea is improvisation, yes, but you also have to look at common practice. So common practice would be to improvise from a period before. So I guess that's the way they used to clean your teeth. I mean, that was the tradition.
Okay, so that was a really fun one for last week. Everybody got that one right, that one. On Tuesday, wow, well, on Tuesday, we had a very interesting word, which was Lakarpench. And I'm not sure if I have the pronunciation right, but I confess, I really did not know the actual meaning of the word Lakarpench, but just by the sound of it, you could tell that it's not exactly a compliment.
Yeah, it will have a negative connotation. And I remember the use of the word by Professor Laguerre when he wrote an article in one of the periodicals, right? So Lakarpench, and there's the thing with a lot of these words, like when we did Nimakaram, you see it's compounds and derivations, right? Just like in Indian, Trinidad Bhojpuri, in English, you would have a simple noun and you add a suffix to create a more complex one. That one was the example. So now we come to Lakar. Lakarpench. And I think a lot of your listeners would know lakad sound like lakdi,
Yeah.
right? Lakdi meaning wood, right? Lakarhar is a Lakarhara is a woodsman. And a Lakarpench was a tool used by the woodsman. So the woodsman would cut the wood, but sometimes, depending on if it's petrified or not, it might be difficult to cut. So he would use what is a pinch or patchar, which is another word for it, which is a wedge, right? A special type of wedge or screw to he would feel to see which part of the wood might be weak and then utilize that to now, or the weakest part of the wood with this wedge to cut it, right? Because it will have some difficulty. So essentially, what it is utilizing your wits and tools to get the wood to be cut, so being smart in a sense. So as a result, the word lakarpench, which is specifically a screw or a tool used to cut wood, it would now be utilized to say a smart man or somebody who basically could use his wit or could outwit somebody else, right? Just like the woodsman was able to outwit the petrified wood, right? Using the lacquer pinch. So they refer to somebody who's a smart man and could bamboozle you as a lacquer pinch, right? Or in other parts of the diaspora, I saw comments where Lakarpench wasn't a person per se, but it was the act of outsmarting somebody. So in different parts of the diaspora, it might have different names.
Okay. So basically a smart man.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Lakarpench. And that is the pronunciation, Lakarpench.
Well, yeah. So Ada, okay. So at the end of the day, in my Trinidad Bhojpuri interviews, as well as what Peggy Mohan had mentioned in her interviews, is that the Ada or retroflex R is not pronounced anymore by the speakers. They replace it with a regular rolled R, right? We don't roll the at R in English. We just say R, right? It's halfway between dental and retroflex. So that you could say lakar, lakarpench, lakari. But the original pronunciation was a retroflex, like in the word ladka. So la so it'll become lakad pinch, nasal pinch, right?
Okay.
So the original pronunciation was lakad pinch, but now it becomes lakar pinch.
Lakarpench.
Yeah.
All right. So now we know. On Wednesday, we usually have a midweek, we have a Bhojpuri phrase, and we use this one because you have a lot of this happening now. Kapraa Dhoway. Kapraa Dhoway. And a lot of the younger ones were able to identify at least the kapra because of roti kapra or makan. But they would remember the word kapra for clothes. They had some trouble with dhowe, but those who figured it out, obviously, they were much more familiar with dhowe and dhobin and dhobinia. So kapra dhowe was our Bhojpuri phrase on Wednesday.
What I want to point out is that you see how the existence of like 103 or radio stations that play local content would still make the words familiar to the younger ones, right? So for instance, Hiram Dhobia Dobinia Kimar, which is a song by Rasoee Dinial. So Dhobi being a washerman, Dhobin, the wife of the washerman or washerwoman, and is a caste or a profession. So that I think would be the reason why younger people would identify it and maybe figure out that well, dhowe means to wash. And then remember Mastana Bahar and Sundar Kapra.
Sundar kapra, correct.
Right. So Sundar Kapra, it means literally beautiful clothes, but it means like formal attire, really, right? It's an idiomatic expression for formal attire. So Sundar Kapra, and next Ada, right? Again, same like Lakadi or Lakad. So I guess because of those references, the song specifically, as well as Masana Bahar carrying on that sort of tradition, they could have kind of figured it out. But
Yeah.
I guess in these segments, it'll be good to explore these expressions because then we could probably learn everyday expressions we could use and kind of figure out grammatically how they are used.
Well, most immediately got it right. So most of the older ones got it right. The younger ones just went halfway through. But that's impressive still. All right. So from Kapraa Dhoway, we went into Rasoee on a Thursday, and basically the heart of the home. And again, some were able to identify the word because of that Rakesh Yankeran song. So Rasoee was our Bhojpuri word on Thursday.
I think the song was Mousie, Rasoee, Halwa. And it's quite interesting because in Sarnami, which is their version of Caribbean Hindustani language, remember they had indentured laborers as well from similar areas. They say kukuru, and kukuru is not a Hindustani word. It's actually a Sarantongo word, which is their they call it Negro Creole, which is the Sarantongo language. But some of them still could identify Rasoee, which is the older word that would have come with the indentured laborers. In Hindi, it's Rasoee Ghar, right? Quite interestingly, Rasoee Ghar, because it's specifically saying a kitchen house. And if you would look at, I remember growing up with my grandparents, the kitchen wasn't really part of the house. The kitchen was a shed outside the house.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives the meanings of the words now, gives a description of that sort of tradition, right? The Rasoee Ghar in Hindi, but it was just Rasoee or Rasoiya, right? Rasoiya, because you add iya, right? Rasoiya also exists as a form of kitchen, but as I grew up, that word again wasn't there. And just like in Suriname, they replaced it with kukuru. We replace it with kitchen, which is the English word. So I would grow up with expressions like kitchen waki behind and stuff, which is behind the kitchen, right? So yeah, Rasoee or Rasoiya, which is Trinidad Bhojpuri for kitchen.
Kitchen. On Friday, we usually have a food-related word, and well, I have to say it went really well following Rasoee. So on Friday, we chose Doodh Pithi, and I got this from someone who listens regularly, and she keeps up with the words on Facebook. And she brought this to my attention. She said when she was a little girl, that is what they were given to eat, and it kept them up. Doodh Pithi. I also observed that when I asked other folks, the older folks, if they knew what it was, they rattled it off as if it were one word, Doodh Pithi, but Doodh Pithi.
Well, doodh is milk, right?
Right.
And then that will derive other expressions we might probably use later on. Yeah, doodh, and is long u and aspirated doodh, which is milk, and pitti or pitauri is a dumpling, right? You have to realize that a lot of the cooking traditions would have evolved based on what was available, right? So white flour was available to make something like dumplings, and milk was available to make something like doodh pithi, which is essentially boil the dumplings, and then they would put it in the milk, which is sweetened, right? And that would be like a morning breakfast. Again, a poor man's food, because something like saltfish was a poor man's food. A lot of our cuisine traditions in Trinidad would have obviously evolved from peasant food that eventually now become elevated to what we call classic cuisine, right? Saltfish and bacon shark, and things like, because I know in Suriname and Netherlands they still make it doodh pithi, and then it's dal pithi, right? Which is savory now, same dumpling, but you now make it with dal.
Was there a particular type of milk that was used?
No, just regular milk. I mean, the boiling process and thickening a little bit because of the cream could be there with adding the sugar, right? But then after a while, I mean, that was basically it, sugar. Because I remember growing up eating something like milk, bread, and sugar. So in other words, the bread would be soaked into the milk with sugar in it, right? Which would be something a semblance of it, and that's basic. But obviously, over time, people would have added stuff like cinnamon or almonds and stuff to kind of make it a little bit more sophisticated.
Interesting. All right, so that takes care of another week of Trinidad Bhojpuri words and phrase. We once again want to thank you so much for your participation. And we have some new folks joining in the conversation on social media as well. So welcome to our project. And this is a KDC production in collaboration with Caribbean Hindustani. Dr. Visham Bhimull, inform us how folks can get in touch with you.
Right, Caribbean Hindustani is the Facebook page. Just type Caribbean Hindustani. Feel free to leave messages and comments. And the website is caribbeanhindustani.org.
And yes, we are taking note of the words that some of you all have been suggesting. We have a long list to work through, so I think we'll be here for some time. So I'm Karen Das.
And I'm Dr. Visham Bhimull from Caribbean Hindustani.
Catch you next week. Bye.